just your reaction. Wanda Barzee has officially been released.
I just hope that the federal parole officer is on top of it and that she doesn't do anything stupid.
What worries you the most, I guess?
I think that because the indication is that she never really took treatment at the state facility and isn't on any medication, and the fact that she's still carrying around Mitchell's little Bible and quoting from it, that she still is very much the same person she was when she went in the system, which is really disappointing. I think all of us were really hopeful that she really wanted to change, but there really isn't any indication that she has. So I just hope that she doesn't have a chance to really inflict her passion on some other poor victim.
When you say that she doesn't seem to have changed, so do you believe then that she could still be a threat, or she could still go back into that mode of...
I still think she is in that same mode, and I don't know if she has any contacts with Mitchell or not. I have no idea on that. So from what I see and hear, when she has to be escorted out of church at the prison, that would indicate to me that she's still very much the same person she was when she went in.
So I guess asking that again, do you feel like she's a threat, though, to anybody else out there?
I certainly have concerns. She was, certainly abusive. She held Elizabeth by the hand during that whole 9 months, basically, anytime she was out in public. And to me, to think that her children don't want to help her, and there doesn't appear to be anyone out there that does, would indicate to me that nobody's seen that there's a change in her.
So Elizabeth talked pretty boldly in regards to just how she played a huge role in just letting everything happen.
Absolutely. The amount of abuse that she herself participated in was it was sickening. And so I think that to see that she hasn't changed, or there's not an indication that she's changed, even though I hear Scott Williams say that she's not a threat. He probably would have said the same thing before Elizabeth was abducted. And that's really disappointing. I don't care if you're defending somebody or not, but if you don't see a change in a person and she did what she did, how can you do that? And I guess that's that's an attorney for you, huh? But disappointing, very disappointing. And then to think that the federal system would have some guard in point that she would be on parole, and that the state system, everyone that I've talked to has said that they feel really badly that she is getting out, yet we don't have any way of, she's not on parole in the state system. There are no checks here in Utah, as far as I can tell. And you think she went in, she served her piece, but if she is still the same threat as she was when she went in, where are we going wrong here in the state? We need to do something to require that they, there is some check, there is some treatment, there is some something that would change it so that they don't just go out and what, the only alternative is civil commitment because she didn't want to do anything in prison. She didn't want to take any mental help or any medication.
So, in the press conference there, Elizabeth kind of made a plea that maybe for the board of pardons to relook at this, or to, did you ever hear back from them, or did anything ever change?
I think they felt badly. I really do. I don't think there was any chance, though, that anything could change. And the fact that that wasn't looked at closely enough to know that, hey, we were out there at the prison and told that it was 2024, and then less than 2 months later, it seemed like it changed to, well, she's getting out, in
next week.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that somewhere there are some breakdowns in the system, and especially that she hasn't had treatment. I mean, that to me is the biggest concern, because I would hate to see anyone fall victim to her again.
In regards to the U.S. Probation Office, I guess, they're saying obviously there's some very strict conditions. She has to check in. She has to tell them where she's at. She can't leave the state. She has to do mental health treatment and those kind of things. Are you satisfied that those kind of things are going to be done? Or what's your concern
I
there?
would think that in our case, it should be in every case, but certainly in this case, they will be checking up on her. And the thing that's disappointing too is that, when we received the call from the state, it was, she's getting out in 2 weeks. We had a week notice longer than you did. But the fact that there was nothing there that they could tell us, I'm sorry, there's nothing that we can do. She's getting out, and that's that. We weren't given any indication that there was any safeguard out there. So until we tried to reach out to people that we'd worked in the federal system, we didn't even know that there was going to be any probation. And the fact that it's just kind of like the system has not given any consideration to Elizabeth. Yes, she served X number of years, but to be given 2 weeks notice that she's getting out and that there is no safeguard on her is really disappointing. And I think that legislatively we need to change, because I think if somebody was in there, and that's another thing, the indeterminate sentencing that we supposedly had up front, like the day after Elizabeth got home, we were given this indication that Utah has indeterminate sentencing, which we were explained that they could, one, lessen the term of her sentence or lengthen the term of the sentence. And then 2 weeks ago, to hear that, no, that's not the case. She can only receive the sentence that she's been given. We can't keep her in longer. And I'm sitting there, so basically all you're saying is the indeterminate sentencing is that they can get a shorter term. And to me, I find it unacceptable to be told these untruths. And that, I remember the comment made to us the day after Elizabeth got home. We were meeting with both the district attorney and the U.S. Attorney's Office, and they said to us, Ed, you think you've been through hell, but you haven't seen anything yet. That was the first comment that I received from them. And I thought to myself, Elizabeth is home. There is nothing that could be worse than her not knowing where she is. And she is home, she's safe, and yes, you can do what you need to do in the court system, but nothing could be worse than having her gone. So I just think...
So were they referring to just basically the court system and
yeah,
what you're going to face?
Yeah, the court system and what we're going to face. And certainly there were a lot of trying times during that, but here we are, Wanda's getting out, and from the state perspective, there would be no safeguard. And,
So if the federal folks weren't there...
Yeah.
She would just be walking a free woman, and there would be no check-in, no...
There's no checks and balances there. And that, to me, is a problem, especially with somebody with the mental problems that she has.
So are you wanting to try and change some things here? Or are you going to try and fight this new legislative session, I guess, to try and maybe
I'm hoping that there's something that we can do, because I find it very acceptable if somebody has changed and they have served some time. that's fine if they get out a little early. But if somebody hasn't, if they've made no attempt to change in their life and they're still stuck in the same pattern they were that drove them to that point, I mean, you know, the comments that Wanda made, we understood that Mitchell was a little reticent to come down and take Elizabeth. And Wanda said, no, you've been telling me all along that God has told you to do this, and I want my slave.
Oh, are you saying that Wanda came right out and...
Came right out and said that. That's what we were told. And so she pushed him to do that. So, I mean...
So she was behind this all along.
She
It wasn't like
was.
she was
Oh, no.
sitting back in the background.
No,
behind.
not at all. Not at all. So I feel like, you know, she does pose a threat, regardless of what Scott Williams says. But my concern is the predatory behavior. And if she's not willing to take help, not willing to take medication, I believe that she still poses a threat. Hopefully not to Elizabeth and her children, but certainly to those that are around her. And so I think that there does need to be a mechanism there that is a checks and balance in her mental problems.
Any idea where she's at?
I don't.
I mean, who's going to take her in? You know anybody out there that you...
Everyone that I've had a conversation with has said no. So,
do you have a right to know maybe where she's at, or do you guys
reach
out to anybody to say, hey, Elizabeth should have a right to know kind of where she's living?
That would certainly be a nice thing to know, but I mean, at this point we're having to put our faith in the parole officer. He knows where she is, and that hopefully the parameters, and I haven't heard exactly what those parameters are, but that she's getting treatment and that she's staying on a medication, which she wasn't doing in the state facility. So I'm hoping this is going to be a forced requirement of her to get out, or she'll be taken back in.
Are you wanting any kind of an apology from her? I
You know-
mean, because apparently she's never really given you one, right?
Well, you know, one of the pieces of the plea agreement is that she was going to write a letter of apology to Elizabeth. And we kept on asking Scott Williams, where is that? Where is that? And finally, one day we're there in trial and he gives us this little two-liner. So, I mean, there was, as far as we, and you can't live that way. I mean, you can't keep going on. And she, I actually feel sorry for her because she's in such a poor mindset, and she's really not seeking any help. And how could you expect your children to take you back or to take you on if you're not getting help? So I honestly feel sorry for her, but I feel that my hope really is that the federal system is going to force her to get help, and otherwise she'll go back into prison. So I
guess last of all here, your daughter, I mean, I saw her at the press conference. She did an interview with CBS this morning, yesterday. Just amazing how she's taking this and the way that she's expressing herself. Any thoughts in regards to your daughter and how she's doing and how she's feeling?
I'm very proud of her. I'm really very thankful to the prayers that are said. I truly believe that those prayers have made a huge difference in her life and in our lives, and we're so grateful for the help that we've received. To think back the other day, we were moving a bunch of stuff, and I had a box there with all of these news clippings that people had sent me, and I started going through that, and it just reminded me how absolutely wonderful the people here in Salt Lake and throughout the country have been, and very supportive, and we're incredibly grateful to them.
All right, thanks a lot, Ed. Anything else you wanted to add in regards to kind of what we talked about with her release, and here we are 15 years later?
There is one other thing, and that is I feel very strongly that we need to help prepare our children for potentially bad things. And I think that life skills is a very important tool. Everyone's heard me talk about RAD kids again. I'm talking about that again, resist aggression defensively. And I believe that when our children understand and know what they can do and what their choices and options are, they can make great decisions. But without that, they're left to whatever their inside is telling them to do. And in many cases, people freeze. And we need to help prepare them. You know, we've tried to push legislation that would help implement RAD kids into the school system. It is in some places and isn't. But if I could say something to the educators out there, is that when you think of educating a child, that is really a blessing in their lives. To give them a tool that would help them deal with the worst of situations, to me, that's the greatest thing that you could give them. Because when you think of those that are going into athletics or music or to some becoming very proficient in some talent, to have a piece that becomes very ingrained inside of you so that when something bad happens, you know exactly, it becomes automatic. And that's what anyone that is becoming proficient in some area, some talent in their life. And to me, I mean, after having gone through what we did with Elizabeth, to me that is very important for every one of our children to get some kind of training and understand that nobody has the right to do the types of things that, you know, Brian and Wanda did.
Let me ask just one more, if you don't mind. Here we are. You knew this day was eventually going to come.
Right.
Obviously, it's much sooner than what you
Right.
thought. But now that it has come, are those emotions all coming back? Are those feelings? And are you experiencing what you may have thought you may experience when she is released, or anything changed there?
You know, it honestly hasn't. And I really feel that we have to put our faith in God, that and in the federal system, that you know, that she will be put in control and that she will get to a point where she isn't a threat. I really hope that for her, because I feel like, you know, life is hard enough without having to have too many traumatic events in your life. And so I'm hoping that Wanda will recognize something of what she did. And maybe she won't, but I hope that she does. And you know, to really change her life and to engage. I mean, really, one of the most beautiful things about life is the relationships that we have with people. And when you're disconnecting yourself from them, you're missing out on what I believe is one of the greatest things that we're here on earth for.
All right. Hey, thanks a lot, Ed. I really appreciate
Thanks,
you joining
Dan.
us. Thank you very much.